Welcome back to Loan Officer Success Partner. I'm your host, Devin Dubuque, and as always, we are sponsored by Premier Lending. Hey, this week, we wanted to bring Ian Smith on from Premier Lending. Ian is one of those guys in the market that's really in the know and knows what's happening out there on the streets. So welcome back to the show, Ian. And man, I know you've got a hot topic that we're going to talk about today, man. So let's get it out there.
Yeah, so Devin, I appreciate you having me on the show. I think we've all been seeing the news headlines over the last week or so. It's really hard to escape if anyone's looking at anything housing related or mortgage buying related, whatever, is that Redfin put out a huge blast about a week and a half ago, kind of showing the change of how the market demographic is and suggesting that there's about 500,000 more sellers in this country than there are buyers. And that's just stirred up a lot of conversation points and a lot of interesting ways of taking that. So I wanted to talk about that today in our show.
No, I think that's great, man. You know, there's popular opinions and unpopular opinions. At the end of the day, you know, we'd love your opinion too, right? You know, so if you're listening in, you catch this and you've got an opinion, we'd love to hear it, right? But today, Ian, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. I know it's something you're really passionate about, and let's get started, man. Let's talk about what's happening out there, man.
Yeah, for sure. So as a student of the industry, of course, I try to stay in tune with all the latest trends, market news, et cetera. And when this dropped, it was obviously a very eye-opening thing to see as a headline. And so, naturally, I did a lot of digging into the topic, and I read, kind of what they had put out there and how they modeled it. And the key there is how they modeled it. So, essentially what they're saying is there's 500,000 more listed inventory than there are buyers to buy the inventory, which suggests a significant imbalance in the overall market nationwide. And so, naturally that's leading people to say it's now a buyer's market. Sellers have no control, expect price declines, price drops, all the concessions in the world. And, on the streets here, it's just an interesting thing to see something like that versus what we're actually seeing in real life. And so when I was digging deeper into the article and kind of realizing how they came up with their data, it was from a model. So, obviously they've got some real smart gurus over at Redfin. I'm not doubting that, right?
No question.
But at the end of the day, they created a model based on metrics that they use, which is not an indicative figure of actual buyers to sellers. And so they use that model to then put out that article. And that article has created all the buzz in the world, has created client calls to us asking, are they getting a good deal on their houses that they're under contract on? And just a lot of doubt in the business as a whole. So kind of my purpose for today is to just kind of say what I'm seeing on the streets, what my counterparts are seeing, what we're seeing in other markets and other areas, and kind of address a little bit of that.
Well, let's talk about that real quick because I know where you're at, but not everybody tuning in knows where you're at. So to be specific, you're broadcasting out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So you're East Coast, and you're definitely boots on ground, and you're in that market daily, right? So you know what's going on. You're talking to a lot of the agents, and you've got a big network, right?
Sure.
So at the end of the day, a lot of the times having that firsthand experience is going to let you know, right? So if your client tuning in, you're going, okay, well, what's he talking about specifically? This is what he's talking about, and more importantly, where. For him specifically, it's North Carolina, but you've got to think about that, right? Sometimes the media gets people scared, and, at the end of the day, it may not apply to you. It may apply to you, though, right? I mean, Redfin definitely has the tools to get great data. We're not saying that, but at the same time, where are you located, and does it truly apply to you and your market? And that's what we're here to discuss today. So you're in North Carolina, and, you see these contracts coming through. What's happening on the streets right now?
Yeah, so I mean, what we've definitely seen this year, especially in the last couple of months, is a slowdown in inventory moving, right? I think last year inventory on market average was somewhere between 30 and 45 days, and now we're in the 60s. This is obviously a trend for, inventory to sit a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that the inventory is not moving. And there's definitely still buyers out there to purchase this inventory. It's just not moving as fast. And there's several reasons for that. Sometimes the summer months are not always the busiest months in our business. And Devin, you know that from firsthand experience. Rates are definitely on the higher side now. We had all hoped to be at a little bit lower rate at this point in time. And, that's created some buyer fatigue. Buyers are very sensitive to headline news and, of course, their monthly payments, and all that kind of goes into their calculations mentally on whether they want to purchase or not. And so it's just been a little bit more of a slowness that we've seen this year. But specifically in my market, Devin, in Charlotte, I mean, we're still seeing increases year over year on home values, right? We're not seeing significant price declines in neighborhoods. And as you emphasize, Redfin is reporting this on a nationwide basis, and there's definitely going to be MSAs that are going to be more imbalanced than others. The benefit that I have is that living in North Carolina, specifically here in Charlotte, is that we've been a very highly moved to state for, decades. We're always top 5 in the rankings. And so, you may have, certain things happening in the economy, but one of the things that makes us a bit more resilient here in our market is that we've got people constantly moving here, and there's never not a need for housing. So, we've been able to maintain year over year home value increases. Inventory is still at a low level, and that just suggests that, as long as that balance stays the same, that we're really not going to see a massive shift from a seller's to a buyer's market. What we're seeing is maybe a balance change in the sense of just rebalancing. So maybe not so seller focused where the sellers have all the power, but still more seller slanted than it was in the past.
Well, and while you're doing, you're talking, I'm actually pulling some real live statistics up in the background just so that we can give some real numbers here, right, and put some detail onto this. So in February of 2024, average days on market was 40 days. 2025, it's 57 days. So there was an uptick there.
Yeah.
In May, the average was 24 to 43 days in 2024. Now it's 32 to 39. So it's actually going down. And if you actually look at April of 2024, 36 days on market compared to 41 days now. So Charlotte's market is staying pretty consistent with what was happening in 2024 to 2025. In addition to that, we talk about the year over year appreciation factor, and there's a few different schools of thought on this, right? Everybody's running their own surveys, but it looks like on average, the agreement is between a 1.7 and a 3.7% annual increase year over year from 2024 to 2025 in the Charlotte market. So what does that mean? Homes are still going up.
Yeah.
Homes are still moving. And yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, but last time I looked, which was literally 20 seconds ago, you guys have a 5-day difference from 24 to 2025. So the market is still moving in a positive direction.
For sure. And, I think if we look at things over a broader sense of time, not so much the COVID inventories moving in like 3 to 5 days timeline, but you think about pre-COVID, what was just normal. Days on market was anywhere from 30 to 90 days, and that was considered a very normal market. And we had much more inventory at the time than we do now. So there's still a lot of things that are very positive for sellers. For buyers, I don't want to say all this to make them discouraged on purchasing. I mean, I want to say this because it's a reassurance on your investment, right? And I think, again, going back to buyer fatigue, with all the headlines, there's always that sense of doubt. Am I making the right decision by timing it now? Warren Buffett has classically said, you don't really want to time housing because housing is housing. It's not necessarily an investment. But when it becomes an investment is when you hold it for more than 12, 24 months, you let that 2 to 6% appreciation that we're, expected to get this year, accrue year over year for your ownership, and it'll come. But worrying about the timing and entrance, it's difficult for people to swallow that with all these headlines that keep coming out.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And let's just go back and kind of talk through that again. So when we talk about historical here, right, and I think that's exactly what we wanted to bring to the table. Pre-2019, average days on market in Charlotte was 90 to 130 days.
Yeah,
right?
I remember those times. Those were interesting times. It was very casual in the mortgage world. You could have a client say, hey, I saw this house on Zillow or whatever medium website was. They call you on a Monday during business hours, not after hours, rush. You'd have 3 days to get them pre-approved. They'll still be able to make the offer before the weekend. And, life was really chill for everyone. It wasn't what we, had in the last couple of years.
That's it, and so that's pre-2019. So that was technically a normal market, right? So then you flash forward to COVID in 2021, it was 25 days on market. Still not astronomically fast, but that's quick, right? Yeah. And then you move forward into today and we're 39 to 44 days, which is definitely better than pre-2019, right? Homes are still moving quickly. not COVID levels, but that's to be expected. We're not in the same market, right?
Yep.
And we talk about that year-over-year appreciation, and again, you guys saw an explosion in March of 2022, 26.23%, which is absolutely astronomical.
Yeah.
But again, 2023 was 4.8, 2024 was 7.7, and as of March this year, 2.65, right? So again, find your data where you do. Obviously, mine's all backed up with some statistics. So if you want to fact check me, feel free. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is Charlotte is a healthy market, and homes are still appreciating, not as rapidly as they were during the pandemic, but you still have great appreciation, and homes are not sitting. They are moving in your market.
Yeah, they are. And I guess really what I want to get out of this with my big message is that home buying is still a positive journey for everyone involved. Sellers are still making big bucks on their sales. Buyers are still getting an opportunity. Even with it seller slanted, there is opportunity out there in the market for sellers that don't have time at their disposal. That's always been the classic, take advantage of sellers that need to move, their property quickly. You can get price drops on that, concessions, the whole nine. But it's still a robust market. Things are still moving. And, this big headline news, kind of cautioning everyone on what's going on, it's just a lot of buzz for clicks.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And this is one thing that we always talk about. Make sure that where you're consuming your media, they're qualified, to give the answer. And look, Redfin, we're not saying you're not qualified. We know you are. But when you're looking state to state, there's a lot of states out there. So, if you're a consumer, get educated by the professionals in your market, right? Whether that's your loan originators like Ian here or your agents. Make sure you're talking to somebody that knows what's going on, that has boots on ground, that's looking at the factual data and advising you along the way. Remember, there's some good people out there. Not everybody's just trying to make a sale. There's a lot of folks out there that are trying to make sure that they're educating their client to determine when the right time to buy is for you. It may not always be the right time, but if you're in the market for a home, don't get scared from the doom and gloom. Make sure you're talking to a qualified professional.
Yeah, and to add to that, this is really where it comes. These times are so important to have a really good real estate agent at your disposal, not just a family friend or someone that knows somebody. This is where you hire the professionals, because these professionals are going to go out there and they're going to get you a deal on your home. And for sellers, this is when it's also a great time to make sure you're hiring a great listing agent, because these are going to be the ones that are going to protect you from taking losses that you didn't need to incur. So big fan of having the qualified, people to represent you, especially in markets like this.
I love that you said that, because that actually brings me over to a conversation I had earlier this week with Stephen Wyans over at Redder. Shout out to those guys. They're an amazing data source. And what Stephen actually built, and it was interesting. He gave me the reason behind this. He originally came into the market with real estate agents, and he built a software that allowed for real estate agents to grade other real estate agents by looking at what kind of transactional history they had, how fast they're moving properties, how they're representing their buyers, to make sure that when you're engaging with somebody, you're talking to somebody that's really qualified to represent, right? However, he took a shift on that, and they actually modified that to where now it also does that for the agent, but it does it for the loan officer, right? And Ian, you've got access to these tools. So, make sure that when you're talking to somebody, that you actually are working with somebody that knows the professionals in their area and who is actually doing business right now. You may think you're talking to a professional, and at the end of the day, they may be that person that looks like they are the part, right? But the reality is, last time I looked, transactions equal experience. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you want to be doing business somebody that's got a lot of transactions, that really knows what's going on, because that's how you're going to be best represented.
Absolutely. Can't agree more.
Yeah. So, and hey, your family realtor may be the best in the biz, right? Just make sure that you're doing your research, and make sure that you're talking to somebody that you can trust. Okay. And hey, if you're in that Charlotte market, you need somebody you can trust. Ian, I'm pretty sure you're taking phone calls.
I'm absolutely taking phone calls. People can reach me pretty much with any medium: Instagram, my cell phone, my website, all that good stuff.
Do you want to drop those out there just in case somebody wants to reach out?
Yes, and my phone number, easiest way to get me, 704-458-0526. Shoot me a text or call. And my Instagram handle is @the CLT Mortgage Guy.
There it is. Hey, and guys, if he rattled that off too fast, and we don't want you to wreck your car, right? Like, just when you get stopped, go look in the description. We're going to have all of Ian's contact information there. And if you're watching, it probably rolled right across the bottom of the screen. So jot that down. Give this guy a call. And, you know, if you don't have a realtor, he's got a lot of connections. He knows a guy or a gal in your marketplace. So, man, Ian, I really appreciate you. You know, he pinged me earlier this week and he said, hey, Devin, I really want to get out there and talk about this topic because we want to make sure our clients and our borrowers are not confused. Right. And so here it is, guys. This is the news. And like I said, if you want to fact check, hit a comment and I'll show you where my resources are from. Happy to share. Right. And hey, if you're in a different market and you want to know what's going on in your market, you know, our team is licensed in 32 states. So we're probably in a neighborhood near you and we are happy to answer questions. Make sure that you share this with 3 people that need to hear it. And hey, go over and like Ian's page. Subscribe to it, right? Get to know this guy. He's keeping people informed regardless to what market you're in. He's going to keep you informed as to what products are out there, how to go out and negotiate on your contracts, and just all the basic information you need to know to be prepared if you're out there looking at buying a home. So I think, did we cover it today, Ian?
I think we covered it, Devin. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Hey, and if you like Ian and you want to see him come back, make a comment. You know, I'm pretty sure I can strong arm him into getting back over here.
Yeah, probably.
I love it, guys. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll keep coming back with great guests like Ian, and we'll see you on the next one.